Okay, let's now move on to the big four, and I want us now to tackle very briefly on food security as well. And Galana-Kulalu has been also a very contentious irrigation scheme. Right now, we know also that the locals are up in arms because of the privatization that has been mooted by the Cabinet Secretary, Eugene Wamalwa, as well. So let's begin from there, Miguna. Food security in this country, we thought that Galana-Kulalu will have actually come as a immediate measure, to stem out the food security in light of what we went through last year with maize flour as well.
Yes, a good question, Debarl. You couched it as the big four. Food security is not a Jubilee issue. Food security is a human rights issue. And it is an issue that has been there for a long time. It does not belong to anyone. But the problem is not whether or not a country can produce enough food stuff. There are countries like Israel, there are countries, all manner of countries, even Namibia, which have more than half of them are arid, completely arid, and nothing can grow there. As long as the country has policy of making sure that it provides food to its citizens wherever the food is obtained, because there are many countries that are producing excess. You can allocate funds for importing food if you have a shortfall. That is really what is required. But Kenya, fortunately, has enough arable land to produce enough food for its citizens. What we lack is not just the policy. Some of the policies are there, but implementation is not there. Because number one, corruption takes more than 70% of our resources, of our tax money.
Yes.
So money that is supposed to go to irrigation, that is supposed to go to supporting farmers, that is supposed to be alleviating the price of fertilizer and other things, equipment, that would enable farmers to grow adequate food is not there because it is stolen. Two, there is dysfunctionality in the ministry. Why would you go to Galana to purport to start an irrigation scheme when we have places with good soil, good water supply, good rainfall, that you can do a proper irrigation and grow adequate food without the kind of rubbish that we are seeing in Galana? Maize cannot grow there, probably cotton. I see the soil, it is black cotton soil. I see the place, it's completely dry. And yet, there are people pretending that they can grow maize there. That is a conduit for corruption. Why would you do that? You must know, and I think a lot of our extension officers, even in the villages, would tell you, this soil cannot support this crop, this soil is adequate for this crop. Why would you go to Galana to grow maize?
Or maybe proximity to, the water body
No, but there are things they could do there. Probably they could do rice. Do you understand? But they can grow maize elsewhere. What I'm saying is that their priorities are misplaced, and they are putting money where they shouldn't put money.
Yes.
And obviously, this is a conduit for corruption.
All right.
So we will not have food security for as long as we have quote-unquote leaders that are incompetent, that lack integrity, that cannot account for public resources.
All right, let's hear from Aaron. You think, first of all, this is a conduit for corruption? Because even the issue of privatization really comes like, from the left side. It seems there was no participatory policy with the Wananchi. So why are they raising, or they're up in arms against this particular
that is what you see when you are an eternal pessimist like Miguna. He can never see anything right that is being done in this country. Let me tell you, you need to appreciate one thing, Debarl, that for the first time since independence of this country, you now have a government in place that has thought outside the box and said, we have been trying the same thing over and over, but we've never been food secure as a country. The reason we've never achieved that is because our agriculture is predominantly dependent on small-scale farmers who do rain-fed kind of cultivation. And they've said, world over, when you look at countries that have been become food secure, how they achieve this is that they do large-scale irrigation to the extent of what you're seeing in this project of Gulala. I keep on struggling with the Galana-Kulalu, you know? And you've got to commend them for being outliers, thinking outside the box and saying, let us try something different. You shouldn't be condemning them the way Miguna is doing this morning. And you know, it's unfortunate if we reduce ourselves to want to be expert in everything. You want to be an expert in law, you want to be an expert in agriculture, you want to be a doctor. It's not humanly possible. You don't want to tell me that the people who sat down and drew the rationale and the whole idea of this project are complete idiots and fools. Of course, they've done their study. In fact, Miguna here contradicts himself because he speaks about completely arid countries like Israel who go out of their way and produce a whole lot of food by planting it in places like this one that you're mentioning. So the point here, Debarl, is we have tried and we've known how to continually improve on this particular project. We may not have achieved the exact desired results, but by and large, we are showing that we are improving as a country. If you go right now, Debarl, to the Global Food Security Index, you'll realize that most African countries are struggling. In fact, there are only 4 African countries that are ahead of Kenya. Go to the 2017 Global Security. I've just checked it up, and it's only South Africa, Egypt, Ghana, and Uganda that are ahead of Kenya, courtesy of this project. As we get on and become better and better, I'm sure we will learn the mistakes that were made in the first phase of this program as we privatize it now, you know, because we've realized this thing is tenable, but perhaps maybe it needs a little bit more of capital that as a government we may not have at our disposal. But let us produce this maize cheaply and become food secure as a country. All
right. Let's hear from Muhammad Manyora, because of course, as I mentioned, we went through a harrowing torture of looking for maize flour, you know, last year, and we expected that, of course, from the 10,000 acres, that something will yield from the Galana-Kulalu as well. But that one also did not really come to fruition as we expected. Is it working for us, or will it take a longer duration as well?
Everything, including Galana-Kulalu, must be understood within the context of how our projects are designed and implemented, and what informs them. If you look at any project in this country, you will come to the conclusion either the people who design them are fools or they are crooks. You see, fools because if you look at Galana-Kulalu, why would you start a project of that magnitude before you do sufficient studies? So that we are now learning, you see how stupid it is, that when you start it, then you realize you don't have sufficient water. So you must now set aside funds to do hydraulic research to find out where you can get water to supplement the very little water that comes from the 2 rivers, Tana and the Kulalu. Then you are also, while on the project at the implementation study level, trying to figure out which soils, which plants, which maize variety, things you would have done before you committed billions into the project. Mm-hmm. See, that shows you are a fool. But if you flip over, it is not because these people are fools. It's because, like any other project, it is meant for people to eat. Look, supposing this Galana-Kulalu thing succeeded, what could we have? What we would have is immediately death to farmers in the North Rift. Because if you are going to sell a 2-kilogram packet of unga or maize flour at 75 shillings, when the current market rate has now hit 130 and above, it means if you were to put those acres into full production of maize, where Cheruiyot comes from, especially where DP Ruto comes from, North Rift, the farmers will collapse. So you get back to what Miguna was saying. If you had that kind of money, would you support the farmers who are losing their crop to very simple things like lack of drying facilities, improper marketing, so that the post-harvest loss contributes to so much? If you control that, you will save farmers. If you had money and you wanted to do irrigation, back to what Miguna is saying, would you irrigate maize or you will do irrigation on horticulture? Because you have sufficient rainfall. So really, the whole thing is either people are foolish or they are greedy, but in the final analysis, they are foolish because Even if you make all these billions, what will you do with it?
All right, thank you. Let's say from Jacomi Dio, because I think also we've had this session before here discussing Galana-Kulalu as well, and where there was also controversy. You remember when it was being mooted, also we had the Agriculture Committee, which was stoutly against the Galana-Kulalu irrigation, and they had to be flown over to, I think, Tana River to actually, see what is really happening there. And it is given to understand, of course, there were change of hands and they changed tone after that. But in light of having Galana-Kulalu, and we know that maize is a staple food in this country, yet maize and milk remain expensive in this country, and we are the people in Africa who actually are producing milk in a larger scale. We are the people in Africa who also were producing maize, so to speak. Why is it that our prices compared to other nations is way up? Yet this is what we've been doing for quite a long time.
The answer is corruption. Galana-Kulalu was never meant to be. Remember, the Israeli Prime Minister came here, not this time of inauguration, another time, and refused to go there. Remember, when the project was mooted, it was actually in collaboration with the Israeli government. That was the origin of the project. And he came and found it was a cash cow, and he never went there. Remember when we discussed it, when the Agriculture Committee got involved, Debarl, it was because the part which was already irrigated produced only seven bags of maize per acre, which in game, well, you had your time. I have not interrupted you. I am telling you, because it failed, and because the government realized that it was going to fail. Somebody in Ministry of Agriculture had a private plane and carried MPs there to go clean it up. Fortunately, it is not clean. What needs to happen going forward is that this project, we have invested billions and billions. We need to see somebody in handcuffs in Ministry of Agriculture. Mm-hmm. Somebody in handcuffs. That is the only way we are going to begin to sort out our problem. Senator, when Omanyora says, had you invested that money in fertilizer, in no thrift, we would not be having maize problems. When you say it is not true, then I am sure you don't understand what you are talking about. Because the vagaries that the farmer in the North Rift goes through can only be cured by a meticulous government, by a government that cares about them. My last point is this, Debarl. This agriculture policy, if nothing miraculous happens, we are going to be in a lot of problems. Take, for example, Yala Swamp, where hundreds of hectares of land have been reclaimed by the Mzungu. The Mzungu now addresses the leaders from that area from 680 Hotel. How he got there? Dominion Farms. The caliber of his person at 680, you know the issues. But what is he telling us? He is trying to sell our only asset at people from Sierra County. That asset is Ebu. He was producing 400,000 bags of maize as an intercrop between rice and in the seasons. But now nothing is happening there. He has come, he has exploited us. He was paying the county only 160 shillings per acre. He has now left, and he goes through our airports. Try doing that in another country. Try. Then he talks to the powers that be. So our problem is big, but there is enough around us. We have the resource to feed our people.
Right. I want to talk about the privatization very briefly before we come to Kimani Omotangi and we wrap it up on that. The privatization of this particular project?
To who?
The locals are not really happy with it?
You cannot do that. We will let us figure out what that land can grow, invest in maize production in the North Rift, just keep simple projects. But you cannot take our land and privatize to shadowy figures. Those are shadowy figures. First of all, an audit must be done. We must know where the billion went to. And if I remember correctly, it's something to the tune of 30 billion Kenya shillings. That's a criminal act. You cannot, and I think it would be wrong for us to invest in a project where everybody keeps saying it is the wrong thing. Let us follow the law. In any case, Debarl, agriculture is a county function. The national government must stay away from what they are trying to do, and the county government must stay away from trying to build airports. You know, let everybody do their role as per what the law stipulates. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's hear from Kimani Matangi as we were winding up. First of all, do you think what is being alluded to by Professor Herman Manyora, that we should have done maybe a good exhaustive study? Maybe one of them would have been a soil profiling. Can it yield maize in that? Is it now a viable ground to actually, grow maize?
Debarl, I would rather, okay, I'll actually answer that. I would have rather started with Herman Manyora's perception itself, his point. And also I think that was also echoed by Miguna on why or whether should we in the first place as a country have made a choice to attempt to grow maize in those regions, given the fact that their perception is that it is wrong, that maize cannot grow in Galana-Kulalu, in those areas. See, and I want to remind these gentlemen to do a little bit more study on what they are saying, so that when we make comments, those comments are in line with truth and reality. I want to tell them, if Miguna, now you come to visit Kiambu or Nyeri, you find that we have more fish than you can find in some places now in Nyanza. We have put up ponds, and now farming fish is one of the big preoccupations. Now, if you go to some of the buildings in Malaysia, they grow cabbages and tomatoes on rooftops, and you can go and harvest inside or on rooftop of buildings. That is what happens with innovation. I want to remind you that if you want to ask what can you achieve using the technology of irrigation to grow crops and make people food secure, stop at Ahero and look at the rice irrigation scheme in Ahero and question its value to the people of that region. If we want to be sincere in asking, is it viable for a government to look at a project, for example, like Galana-Kulalu, pick an area like Tana, and decide to invest using technology in that place? And to my colleagues here who are in Parliament, and my neighbor here, Jacoyo Midiwo, they can also tell our viewers this morning how many times committees of Parliament have traveled to Israel to go and witness for themselves how Israel managed to turn a desert into a completely food productive area that is, and a country that is food secure. I mean, they've gone to conduct studies there. So there is one thing that we also have to agree to here. See, when you use the word or the term corruption every time, it's an attention catcher, and it's populist also. So you find whatever we want to address here, once you start with it is corruption, you know that you're going to stop people in their tracks first to be attentive. And you can easily run away from truth or facts or actually prosecuting your point based on real knowledge of what you're saying. Because some of the things that we are talking about here, about Galana-Kulalu, reminds me of when the Muzungu came to Kenya, to Africa, and found us with the zebu cows. And he was saying, you cannot introduce our modern cows here. Africans are only used, and they can only grow these, they can only rear these cattle with humps, the zebus, until that was changed and a reality came in, and we showed now our farmers can grow and farm and breed.
Thank you.
Top-notch cattle. So what you're saying is that, when we are speaking about what is really happening, and I want to remind our viewers this morning that indeed, irrespective of any other claims, a few things I know about Galana-Kulalu is that it is a project that was intended and launched to be rolled out in phases. And still, that phasing is going on. The first phase was the 10,000 acres. The second phase, or some of those phases, including damming and creating water catchments, whereby you are able to reserve water to irrigate the places.
Thank you.
And so the phase is gone.
Right.
So if we take that habit of demonizing every effort and then ruining it by first calling it corrupt, trying to be populist, can we look at the merits of what the efforts are, genuine efforts?
Thank you.
You know, Debarl, let me finish my point. Right now, Kenya is depending on maize imports from Uganda. Right now, we're importing our maize from Uganda. You've seen what farmers are doing in Western Kenya. So ask yourself, are we better off advocating for a scenario whereby we want to go and take our money to import maize from Uganda, or should we attempt to grow a maize here?
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
It's wrong.
All right, we need to move on. Let me just
can we be realistic
on this? No, because we need to go around again, and we are strapped for time. Yes, just hold it. I think this is a developing story. We'll discuss it much later.
Okay.
All right, then we have also our viewers, and of course, I can see a rush of tweets on our Twitter handle. We have Katka saying that food in Kenya dictionary means, of course, maize flour. And we have refused to adopt potatoes, matoke, etc. as food. We have become so tribal such that we have tribalized some foods, as potatoes wrote in central Kenya. Someone is dying in northeastern. Now politicians have become agri-experts here, he asks. Also, we do have, Sadia Hussein saying, Galana-Kulalu project is not benefiting Tanararians at all. He's from Tana River. We have Bob Kefas Egesora saying the cost of rewarding friends is a failed leadership. Captain Francis Thiongo, this is true. This November 27, a relative got the warning from a senior doctor there. This is alluding to Kenyatta National Hospital as well. We have also John Gidanga saying inequality is extreme. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening at an alarming rate. It's a case of opulence and hunger. And we have also Don Pete saying prices of maize and milk are up because of corruption. It is that simple. Also, we have Olivia Ndolo say Galana-Kulalu is affecting wildlife movement in Etsavo. Of course, also alluding to the fact that maybe a comprehensive research was not really done on how that will affect some of the ecosystem around Galana-Kulalu as well. We have Dominic hanging on the line. Good morning, Dominic. We seem to have lost him. But Kennedy still is on the line. Good morning, Kennedy.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Nick, I'm fine.
Right.
Kwanza nataka ni shukuru Nation TV.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, we can hear you. Endelea.
I'm fine.
Yes.
Nataka ni shukuru Nation TV kwa yale mazungumzo ambayo inaendelea katika runinga.
Asante.
Ambayo inatuletea kila siku.
Yes.
Hasa sisi wakulima. Ile kitu ambayo nataka nikusie kama mkulima. Kitu ambao serikali haijafanya sana katika mambo ya ukulima. Sisi kama wakulima ambao tunalima mahindi ama majani chai ama ufugaji wa ng'ombe.
Yes.
Shida ambayo tumepitia, ile mbolea ambayo tunanunua ni bei ambayo iko juu sana. Mahindi ambayo tunauza kwa kunia moja tunauza kwa bei ambayo iko chini sana. Chakula ya ng'ombe.
Yes.
Maziwa tunauza kwa shilingi 28 kwa lita. Ile chakula ya ng'ombe ambayo tunanunua kwa bei ya juu sana. Majani chai ambayo tunailima. Yale mambo ambayo tunafanyia majani chai kwa ukulima, kwa mbolea, kwa watu ambao wanavuna chai,
yes.
Lakini ile bei ambayo tunapewa na serikali shilingi 20 kwa kilo moja. Hatujafurahia kama wakulima.
Asante.
Ile kitu ambayo nataka niambie serikali. Mkulima ama chakula ambayo inaletwa katika nchi hii na ni nguzo ya taifa. Kama hakuna chakula katika taifa ni shida.
Asante.
Nataka serikali ama waziri wa.
Thank you. All right, let's have Alison briefly, then we go back to a panelist. Alison, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. You have a question or a contribution for our panelists?
I have a contribution.
Please, very briefly, sir.
First of all, I want to thank the panelists
Yes.
for raising this issue. Another thing that I would want to check you with myself, when we talk of
Right, we think. Right.